the fundamental question of how closing buildings will decrease class size needs to be addressed. I don't understand that.
I'll add one word and then I'll let you guys expound. Right now we're suboptimized.
Right.
We're not optimally organized right now, so I'm sure you can do better than.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. But a lot of people think is that if we take two buildings, put it into one building, class sizes get bigger. But also what is going with those children are the teachers and staff that goes with them. If you look at Truman High School right now, there is a lot of classrooms that are not being utilized.
Tommie, can you go up to the mic, because I know the person that's going to be recording this later on is going to say.
Oh, thank you.
It's a good question, but like I said, Truman High School right now is not being fully utilized. There are a lot of classrooms that are just sitting empty. There are a lot of classrooms that are being used as office space. There's a lot of classrooms there that like just being underutilized or not used properly as it is. So when those students go from Kennedy to Truman, so will the teachers. And we do have some classes that are 34, 35, 36 already. And we have that many kids in that room because we don't have an extra teacher to pick up an extra section. We combine the two classes, now we have a teacher that can pick up an extra section. So in terms of scheduling, could we create a situation when those teachers come over that we have greater flexibility so that we can create a schedule with smaller class sizes? Absolutely we can. Offering more classes? Absolutely we can. And more enriched curriculum? You bet we can. And that is simply the power of being able to combine both buildings together. Because if I have a section of math, let's say Algebra 1, and I have 17 kids in it, and I got a section over here of Algebra 1, 17 kids in it, I put the two together and I got 34 kids. But if she has a class with 12 and another class with 12, we put those together and we end up with 28, 29 kids. So what we're saying is instead of running some classes short and other classes too large, we're better able to even those classes out from classroom to classroom. And that's currently what happens now in a lot of the high schools is we have some classes that are large and some classes that are short. And this allows us the flexibility to even them out.
What's the student population at Kennedy and Truman now?
Well, right now, because we're going through that count process, as of today, before we dropped any students, we have 1,006 on the books. Now, we have about another 40 students that we're tracking. Out of those 40 students that we're currently tracking, and we only have a couple days left, I'm expecting that we're going to have to drop at least a dozen, maybe more of those, because they haven't showed up. They haven't been in attendance in quite a while.
And how many?
And that would end up putting us under the 1,000 mark. So we'll have less than 1,000 kids. We'll probably be in the high 90s, 990s, 990 something. Truman, if I'm correct, is
about 940 right now.
940. So they're at about 940. We'll be in the high 90s. Now we're talking about a situation that at one point in time, Truman had over 1,900 kids in that building, and Kennedy had 1,500 kids. We no longer have 1,500 kids at Kennedy. We no longer have 1,800 at Truman.
A few of us up here have been through this a few times with proposals, and I'm not trying to minimize any of the work that you've done. There are just factors that need to be considered, and there's a difference between building capacity and functional capacity. And I still have the number in my head from last time. We were told that Truman's functional capacity was 1,780. So this puts that building over the functional capacity, and I just am uncomfortable voting on something that the numbers aren't there, and I didn't once hear functional capacity. So with that number of students, can you run all the assemblies you need and all the lunch periods and things like that? That's something that needs to be considered in this process. And we've stopped the process in the past. One of the other plans to close and consolidate buildings because the functional capacity, it turned out our student population was higher and we couldn't fit the students that they wanted to fit into West Junior High. So we need to see the numbers. Is that correct?
Does anybody have any other questions for the committee? I would just like to say, first of all, thank you for all the work that was put in. I know that a lot of time was put in by each one of you. For those of us that have been around here for a while and have been involved, I think we are very aware of the fact that something has to be done in the Taylor School District in order for us to survive and then to thrive after that. So I appreciate all this that has been done, and I appreciate the methodical way in which it has been put together. I would agree with Mrs. Stellini that numbers are very important that we have to see with all those things, because there have been some questions in the past. But we do thank you for all the work that the committee put in. I know it's a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of good thoughts that went into this. I would just like to say for the audiences, for those that are here, and I know many of you are here for this reason, there's really not a whole lot on any of these recommendations that we have not heard before. This is pretty much things that have been talked about in the past, but we are at a crossroads, and we do have to do something in order to move forward. And so I appreciate the work that was put in, and again, the board will have to review this. Some are seeing it and hearing it for the first time tonight, so we will be moving forward on that. Any other comments or questions from the board?
So, understood and agreed. I just want to, I really do want to suggest again, that as we go forward, we want to work out a timetable of how we're going to address this. To do it, to let it just lay out there is really the wrong thing to do. I think that's been demonstrated as well. And again, I think you mentioned it before, so as we're going through this, I think we need to help respond with a timetable, or at least develop a timetable of our responses.
Well,
I think it,
Go ahead.
I think it was evident during our superintendent interviews, several of the candidates spoke of closing buildings. That was one of our questions. And I wrote down the timeline. Most people took a year to get the community on board and to do it appropriately. That was what most people said. So I'm a little uncomfortable with presenting this to the public next week and voting on it the following week. So I'm just,
But again, I think what needs to be presented is more understanding, the numbers that went behind this. And that's what I alluded to earlier. This was not just people getting together and saying, we go this way, we go that way. There was a lot of numbers that were put behind it. So that's what I'm suggesting. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. It needs to be given us more of that background information so that people can see this and can move objectively.
Well, when we're talking about a special meeting, Mr. Zorn, are we talking about a meeting for the board to do work on this project? Are we talking about a town hall for?
What I had mentioned before is a town hall, a community forum. I'm not sure the right words, at Truman. So, so everybody can get more information on it. That's exactly what I said.
Okay, and I agree 100% that has to take place, but in light of Mrs. Stellini's questions, which I think is a very good question, there are some questions about the proposal that we need answered. What is the functional capacity, and can we make for us to go out and say, okay, let's go ahead and do all 8 of these for next year, and then find out that we cannot do that, would really not be very wise. So we need to get those numbers in front of the board as quick as possible. What is the functional capacity, first of all, of Truman? We also need to know what the functional capacity of both of the middle schools are if we're going to make a decision to close the 6th grade to be able to move them in there. And I know we have recent information about that because that was sent to us last year. So those kind of things need to be given to us. Some of these things I think can take place internally with just us, I guess, giving the go-ahead with some, but we do need to have information before we can go out to the community and look like we're moving forward with this, I guess is the question. Not that we're against moving forward. I think we just have to have those numbers that need to be incorporated into all of this. And of course, we would like to know what the cost savings are to all of this, because obviously that's important. But even larger for me than the cost savings is how does this affect students? And I will vote first of all on it being a benefit for students. I will vote secondly on it being a budget item. And so I want to make sure that this is going to be something that we're not overcrowding buildings and that sort of thing. So that kind of information, we need to see that. And we need to try to see it immediately.